welcome to the Pune International Film Festival. Please make yourself comfortable. We are really happy to have you here. Please. And I would now pass on to Samar sir to continue with the discussion. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Many times when we start inviting or getting cinema, there are so many interesting things happening in this subcontinent, either from Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or so many things. And we feel, at least I feel, that we have to realize and come together to understand each other's cinema. And you gave us this pleasure. So I'm very happy that your film is in our festival, and I love that film. I selected that film. Now I would like to ask you that film has got a particular look of looking at human beings and that whole environment and their journeys. So what was the element with which it triggered off this idea?
I think there are two things. One is about that the experience of having to go through two conflicts since my lifetime. Actually three, but the first one I can't remember. It was 1971. Second one is for 30 years dragged on conflict in the north and east. And the third one, which is kind of not very well noticed, and I'll come back to that in a minute, that whole thing of going through that experience and how people dealt with that about the atrocities. But the second most important thing is actually the influence of Buddhism and Hinduism. The way we look at the life and the way we look at the afterlife and the whole idea of why we are here as human beings, and positioning parallelly the two parallel existence. One, the political existence as human being, two, as the spiritual existence as human being. And a lot of the time our revolutionists would go for the just kind of position the human life in political existence and wouldn't analyze the spiritual existence, and they get it wrong all the time. And that's why I think the two major conflicts, the two major revolutions were failed in Sri Lanka. And those were the two main reasons to look at the human beings in that way.
Here I would like to go a little bit further, taking your feelings and sensory approach towards the content of your film. Why did you title the film Earth? Okay, another element which comes to my mind is that as you are talking to aspects of life, political and philosophical, spiritual aspects, how do you connect it with the context Earth, and how it goes through the context, which is one of my it gives me a very immense sort of happiness and pleasure watching your film, is looking through female characters.
Earth, actually, we call it Paangshu, and you probably understand the Sanskrit term of it. It means soil. And we are born out of soil in one way or the other, and we will end up there one way or the other. And that's whole spiritual existence. And also in the Buddhist culture, we give away, we kind of call the death, the funeral ritual as Paangshu Kule, which means we are giving away this piece of clothes to the Buddhist monk. Originally, the Buddhist monks in India, in the time of Buddha, they were supposed to take the cloth that used for wrapping the dead bodies, and they take those cloth and apply yellow color, the saffron color, and wear them because it's supposed to be very minimalistic. And now what happened is this whole ritual of the Buddhist monks don't need that cloth that used for wrapping dead bodies. They use that cloth. They give away a piece of white cloth to the Buddhist monk at the funeral as a symbol of that. And that is the whole symbol of that the meaning of bringing the word soil. And on top of that, all these mass graves that keep coming up, and the most recent there are two mass graves came up, and one is about that contains about 280 dead bodies, even of children. And how could we do something like that? So all these secrets are buried under the earth, and this is the meaning that I wanted to bring through the symbolizing of this title. The second thing about female characters, just I'll go to one particular space, a part of the film. There is a concept called four omens in Buddhism, and the Buddha, who was a prince, who saw these four omens and became so desperate about life and dissolution, and he decided to become monk. So those four omens are seen in male forms in the Buddhist culture. Person who is sick, person, the dead body, and the older person, and finally the Buddhist monk or the monk. So I put that in female context because it is a woman who is going through this journey to realize there is no meaning of all these things. I should now finish the pursuing, and I should now reconcile with my enemies, and I should bring the peace to the soul of my dead son. So actually, who are suffering in this conflict are the women. I just want to bring it to the attention, and because they are going through that, and most of the times it's mothers. How awful it is for a mother to lose the child before she passes away. And that's why I wanted to bring the role of the mother and the gender of the woman, the female gender, to the person who is suffering, person who is challenging, person who is fighting, and person who is reconciling.
It's really nice. It's very nice way of exploring your themes for understanding. Because most of the time when I move around in India and other places, especially in my country, then we realize that this concept of earth is always represented as Mother. So in Indian, Prithvi is Mother, earth is Mother. In this context, I would like to ask Madam a question. How you were selected for the performance? What was your journey in going through the script, then finding out your own context and connections to the character, and how you explored the beautiful performance in the film?
Okay. How I was selected, you had to ask, I think, Visa director. And to go through the script, yes, this is a new experience to me, really. I have done so many films, but this is one of the, when I read it, it was the hardest and the most challenging character that I did. There were a few more before that, but this is the most, I would say. And so I was scared to accept this character, really. I told him, can I do certain things like swimming? I'm scared of water, I'm terrified of water. He called me from Sydney, he was in Australia at that time. I said, please take another person because I don't think I can swim, I'm terrified of water. Then he said, no, try. So I tried, and somehow I managed to do the swimming. Anyhow, that's one experience. And the other one is acting side. I would say this is the first time we went through a whole procedure of understanding the character. Like he conducted workshops with every character, even little character, even a tiny character. He said, the word he said is, don't act. Please don't act. Just come with your inner feelings and give it to you on the face. So I think he managed to get it from me and everybody else. That's what I had to say. And I'm happy to work with him as one of the best directors in my life I had in my cinema career.
I would like to know a little bit more about you, madam. When did you actually start your career? Were you from theatre? Were you from some other work of art, or you directly came to cinema?
I directly came to cinema when I was a schoolgirl.
Okay.
Yeah, in the high school, and I didn't finish the exam, and I went into career. And after that, for about 8 years, I did about 40 films.
Okay.
They selected me. After the 8th year, I got married and I went to Canada.
Okay.
For 18 to 20 years, I was away from the film industry.
Okay.
And my coming back to cinema, again came with the walls within, which is Prasanna Vitanage, his film. So I won the Best Actress in Singapore Film Festival. Then after that I did few more films. Then we decided to reside in Sri Lanka after a few years. So that's how, then I started doing a few more films, and this is the last that I did that I like.
Okay, I would like to ask him now, because your film is contextually connected to Earth and the philosophical and other journeys. It's going through the women and their own 4 points, as you said, from the Buddhism. And with it, here I would be more interested. I would like to ask you how the locations, the characters, and the visual texture you evolved into. How you decided that this is how the background and the locations through which these characters will perform, or they will do this business. So automatically, as you said, no acting, but simultaneously their performance and the situations has to have a certain tonal, textural unity. How did you achieve it?
So there are two things actually: the actual physical environment and also the symbolic presentation of the concept Earth. So in terms of the actual environment, the film is supposed to bring a story in 1994, and then the flashback goes as old as 1989. Mind you, this is the time that the Indian army was occupying in Sri Lanka, and the second revolution of the people came from the south was again very anti-Indian, unfortunately, and they didn't see the real context of the whole issue, that they being the sufferers of a bigger political game. But it was simply put it in that way. That's a different story. We can come back to that. But these people who suffered most are the people from the rural villages, people who are poor, and people who were struggling, and the areas which are very dry and lack of water and a very harsh life, constantly being have to deal with the wildlife and so forth. And what happened was, when we went to so that is the main reason to choose that kind of area. And also what we went to the locations, actually nothing has changed for all these 20 odd years time. Still people are suffering. And when we were doing the night shooting, we have to be so worried about the elephant attacks, and we had to have wildlife officers with us. And when we finished and shooting and going back to our lodges, on the road we can see the elephants have attacked, and all the kind of residues of the attacks. And it was very sad to see nothing has changed despite people giving away their lives. But then back to the texture, the earth, and I was looking for that earthy texture everywhere. And the main reason we wanted to go to the dry zone of the country is just to kind of stay in that feeling of earthy feeling, and just kind of almost touch the earth during the entire period of the film.
When we look at the complete work, how creatively you could relate or communicate to your other cinematographer, sound recordist or editor? I would like to know that.
Yes. Look, I must remember their contribution to that. This is made with a very low budget, and this is all my personal savings that after working in Australia as a public servant, I earned this money and brought to Sri Lanka and made this film. And I could make this because of this generous contribution of all my team members. Particularly, I worked very close with my editor and the cameraman, the director of photography, months before, actually close to a year before the shooting of the filming. We did a lot of editing, and three of us were the production designers. So we did a lot of production designing, and I had shot by shot storyboard, and we have done a lot of preparations, and three of us worked together very closely. Particularly, I had to remember the contribution of my editor Sithum, he did not only edit, he did overall coordination of the post-production, because I was living in Australia. So I basically have to communicate online, and he did the overall kind of, just checking the sound balances and music, the sound levels, and also management and the supervising of foley laying and so forth. And they have done a lot of work. And also, I worked with the musician during the entire time of composition. I didn't leave the studio at all. And he said, "You are the only film director who stayed with me without sleeping during the entire time of the composition." So they all participated a lot, and I took my actors through a hell almost. So they started the first workshop 6 months before, and then the second workshop about 2 weeks before the film. So by the time they go to the location, they knew everything. I didn't have to kind of do any rehearsals or nothing, only on one take run. So they basically got into their bloodstream. And because of that, we could finish the shooting by 17 days. Yes.
Yeah. Has this film been released in Sri Lanka?
No, not yet. We had only one screening in Sri Lanka and one screening in Montreal, and this is our Asian premiere in Pune.
Okay.
So only 3 screenings so far.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we are really privileged to have the Asian premiere of this film, and I wish you a success, and I wish that with this film, with this philosophical understanding, somehow or other we'll be able to make people look at the things which we are either keeping aside or avoiding, especially when the world is becoming more and more violent. We'll have to be very considerate and reconcile again to inner self. So thank you for giving us this really nice, enriching journey to inner self through your film as a creative artist. And I again thank you and welcome you for sharing your views here. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank
we'll
you
be
very
looking forward.
Thank you very much
For your next film.
Thank you. Well, I don't know when the next film is going to happen, but we wanted to thank Pune International Film Festival. This is a fantastic festival, so well organized, and people are so hospitable. They never say no to anything. They always said, "Les, I'll do something about it." And the volunteers are absolutely fantastic. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much, Pune International Festival, and long life for you. And you have done a fantastic job.